Good morning, folks. Here in St. Augustine, Florida, hanging out. One of the cities in Florida that I have not visited, but definitely loving the vibe that's down here, loving the energy that's down here. It's an old city, and it states claim to be the oldest city in the United States of America. And so we got to check it out. Tune in. So St. Augustine is often celebrated as the oldest continuously occupied European establishment in the United States. It's not too far from Jacksonville, Florida, which is, of course, not too far from Amelia Island, a place that I like going to. Daytona Beach, it's not terribly far from that. And this town just really captures what it was like back in the day, the 1500s or what have you. The Spanish founded the city in 1565. So walking through this historic city, it's really like stepping back in time, where the remnants of each era contributed to a story of resilience, and not only that, but culture. There's so many different cultural intersections that are here in this town that I've learned since being here, which is pretty dope, because oftentimes when you go to places, things from a cultural perspective have potentially been wiped out just because, new construction and different ideas that have come in and changed the whole landscape of what people have always known in some of these cities. And so to see that there's been a sense of permanency here in St. Augustine is pretty dope. Some of the history that's here, and I am not good with pronouncing some of these names, so please don't judge me. I've just got to keep it real with you all. But there was an explorer here named Juan Pon Delon, and I know that because I lived in Atlanta and I worked near the street Ponce de Leon, so that was just like a given. I can knock that one out the park. But he claimed Florida, which also then ignited this European interest in the area. But it wasn't until 1565 when Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez de Aviles arrived here and formally founded this as a settlement. And as you see right here, the streets all point to that time and era, the street names. So as you see, Spanish Street, and then there's Hippolyta Street. It's a cross intersection. So we're gonna keep on going up here and see what we have. It really doesn't feel like you're in the United States when you're down here. And I mean, I think that only makes sense, being that so much of the buildings here were able to retain its original structure due to some very intentional preservation. And so people are out walking, enjoying this good sunshine. It is, what's today? November the 10th. And we are looking at an 80-something degree day out here. So definitely not this hot in North Carolina right now. So what we're looking at right now is a house example of a common home in Spanish St. Augustine during the time period. This was restored by the state of Florida in 1976. The University of Florida has done a lot of work down here with the preservation of these homes and these buildings. And this specific house, which is called the Jona House, is listed in the National Register of Historic Places here in the state of Florida. And so This would be an example of how a lot of Spanish style homes were back then. And obviously, apparently, if some of these are private residences, then they still are now. And it's always good when you have local universities that are taking part in the preservation efforts, because what that does is it breeds a newer generation of folks who may have a greater appreciation for history now, and they would be part of making sure that history is told, hopefully from a comprehensive standpoint. So this is the Saledo House on 42 St. George Street, and it's the home of the nation's first black general who came to St. Augustine from his native St. Domingo. Today we do know that that is Haiti. In 1796 he was an officer in the Spanish militia, and so this is the home in which he once lived. It is preserved very, very well right here in the heart of St. Augustine. And I can't say that last name, maybe General Basin, perhaps. And if I'm wrong, hey, I'm human. He was one of the original leaders in the 1791 slave uprising in Haiti. For his service to the Spanish against the French, he became a Spanish general and came to St. Augustine with an entourage and staff of 26 fellow revolutionaries as Florida's second highest paid official. Although living at this home here in the center of the city, he owned a large tract of land north of town. So this was also a landowner here in St. Augustine. Right, so here is Juan Pon Delon, who I mentioned earlier. This is a bronze statue of him, born 1460, and he passed in 1521. So he's been the identifier of who discovered Florida near this spot in 1513. So they have this bronze statue of him right here in the center of town. As you see right here, it says the discoverer of Florida, which if they were indigenous folks that were already here, you know, it's kind of like, did you really? So directly across the street from the bronze statue of Ponce de Leon, they have the Boat River Basin. And so the city of St. Augustine put this up, and as you see right here, it says nation's oldest city, founded in 1565. So they are most definitely staking claim to that, as they should, you know, as they should. So let's turn around here and look and see what the river basin looked like and some of the attractions that they have here, which one is this old looking boat. Alright, so we're at the Atlantic Ocean, and it says right here, the body of water in front of you is the Atlantic InterCoastal Waterway. The InterCoastal Waterway is also known as Marine I-95. It's marked as continuous navigation channel that begins at Virginia and ends in Key West. It provides a route for commercial and recreational vessels that are not able to travel safely in the open seas. So this provides an alternate way of travel. All right, another historical marker, Florida, the Sunshine State. Let's see how its origins began. Colonized by the Spaniards, 1559, site of the first permanent settlement in the United States, 1565, as I've mentioned numerous times, and it was acquired by the United States from Spain in 1819, admitted as the 27th state in 1845. I don't know when this was put up, but it says now nation's fastest growing state in 1963. Okay, that answers that. The population of 5,639,900. State song, Old Folks at Home. We'll need to look that up. State bird, the mockingbird. State tree, sabal palm. One of the world's greatest resort areas, 30,000 named lakes, 600 varieties of fish, over 1,000 miles of sandy beaches, site of the famed Cape Kennedy Moonport boasts versatile and expanding economy based on its factories, forests, farms, and mines. Manufacturing employment has doubled in the last 10 years, and that would be, I believe, since 1963. So that's what's up. And here's the seal. All right, so this monument pays homage to the civil rights movement in the 1960s here in St. Augustine. They protested the racial discrimination by marching, picketing, kneeling at the churches, sitting at the lunch counters, waiting at the beaches, and attended various different rallies, raising money, preparing meals, and providing safe havens for individuals who were just looking for basic human rights. It states right there, they persisted in the face of jailings, beatings, shootings, loss of employment, threats, and other dangers. There's an iconic photo of a guy, a white guy at a hotel who, and it's not too far from here, who was dumping in the pool of some children who were just swimming, some black children that were swimming. And that iconic photo during the civil rights movement sparked an even larger and more intense effort to make sure civil rights were granted for everyone. And so even though St. Augustine has a lot of very, very old history, this is still some history that's prevalent here too during the civil rights movement. So they called this the St. Augustine Foot Soldiers Monument. Good stuff. All right, so most towns we know, if you've been around for a while, have their own public plaza. And this is Plaza de la Constitucion. And it's the oldest public space in America, which only makes sense because it's the oldest city in America. And so that monument right there in the middle is the landmark that was put in place to identify such. There were certain ordinances that were specified here to the plaza. And it says the first system of weights and measures was established with the market here in 1598. So another fun fact, Frederick Douglass actually spoke and stood right here at this site. It was the Geneva Opera House at one point in time. And he stood here on a Sunday, April the 7th, 1889. He traveled here from Jacksonville, Florida on a special railroad car that was provided by Jacksonville and St. Augustine Railroad Company. Looks like he was given a large reception here with an estimated 700 people in attendance, according to the Florida Times Union newspaper. So he got around, most definitely, to go from a formerly enslaved individual, who was able to seek freedom, gain it, and then to go around and speak during the institution of enslavement as well as post-emancipation, and provide so many different inspiring speeches to encourage and help the process of abolishing the institution of slavery is pretty dope. So glad to know that the footsteps that I'm making here today followed those of greatness. All right, so it's been pretty dope here in St. Augustine, finishing out this local tour down here, and this is going to be the last stop, and it's at the Castillo de San Marcos. We're going to walk up here, and it is on the National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark Register right here. Since 1976, it's been part of it. So they get a lot of people that walk along this path here in the mornings because it feels good and it looks good and it's historic, and you're able to get your steps in as well as have some good history. So let's check it out. As you see, that's the fort right there. There are the park rangers educating folks about it. There's some cannons, and they also have living history here as well. So we'll just come up here. Don't have time to go actually inside, but I can at least show you the outside of the fort. I came up here at night the other day, and it was really beautiful They had everything lit up. A lot of guys out fishing today, enjoying the nice weather. And it's right in the center of town, so you cannot miss it, that's for sure. But this is the fort. I won't be able to go too much further because you do have to pay to get in, and I got to get to Jacksonville, so I don't necessarily have the time, but just wanted to show it to you all. It's a pretty nice site. A lot of families and people come up here to enjoy some local history. And if we come over here to this specific panel, hey, how y'all doing? This panel shows the Spanish stronghold. This was built between 1672 and 1695, and they replaced some wooden forts that were once here. You can walk around this side, but not going in. It's like a little drawbridge that's right there to get from one part of the fort over to the other. A magnificent structure that has withstood the test of time. So that's it. This has been my journey in St. Augustine, Florida for now. I definitely want to come back and check out some more stuff later on. So, hope you all have enjoyed it. Peace.